Welcome to Season 3 of Hines on Air, a new space for voices with something to say where conversations are recorded and remembered, hosted by Matt Hines.
Coming at you from Atlanta, Georgia, welcome to Hines on Air. Hey everybody, it is Matt Hines. We're back at you with another Hines on Air, and today we've got a stud for you. This is a very interesting topic. It is for all entrepreneurs, anybody who is just busy in that career, trying to build it, trying to take off, spends a lot of time in the office, and it's a question that we all have if you're focused on career. It's how do you separate career from family, from having children, for hobbies, from doing what you want to do in life. You don't want to be a slave to your work, but you're also committed to what you're doing. So how do you divide all that? Well, we've got the expert on with us today. This is George Rivera. He's consulted with 7, 8, 9-figure firms. Like he's seen the top. And so he's worked with everyone. He knows what stops us, what gets in the way, what prevents us from doing what we want to do, which is, we want to be successful, but we don't want to be a slave to that success. So he's developed a system. It's called the Father First Owner system. And he's also written a book, Buyback Time Formula. So he spent a lot of time in the field. He's also written about it. So I think he is well qualified to talk about this. George, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you, Matt. Happy to be here.
Yeah.
It's going to be fun.
Yes, sir. All right, my friend. So you consult with companies. You go in. Somebody is just underwater on the amount of time they're spending. How do you start it off? Like, what do you do to help?
Yeah, basically identify some pain points, and I kind of just go back to the beginning, kind of where this whole thing started, and it starts kind of in my childhood, kind of going back to middle school and high school. So in those like 6 years, I was an athlete, not an amazing one, but not horrible. But I played basketball, and there was about 40 games that I played in, and my dad only made it to one of those games because he was so busy in his career working. And he was a good guy, medical doctor, made lots of great money, provided us great homes and cars and trips to Europe every summer. Also had the coolest toys. That kind of became part of my identity. You get to hang out with George, you get all the cool stuff too that goes along with it. And but he only went to one of my games, and it was a little confusing as a young child. I mean, kind of early teen years. And the interesting thing was, I'd score a basket or do something, and I look to the stands and the crickets, the empty stands, because all sons seek approval from the father as far as like, am I doing good, or what do I need to improve? Please guide me, Dad, because like I got nothing else. And that's just the natural way things are. And I remember my friends and teammates, they would score and their dads would be there cheering them on. That's my boy. And give them Gatorade, pat on the back in a timeout. And again, me, stands, nothing to cheer me on. And I remember one time, one of my friends scored and his dad just loving him. And I remember looking at him saying, man, looking at the dad, I was like, I wish that was my dad. And I would have crushed my dad hearing that, because like I said, good guy, hard worker, gave his all to his career. But the moment that I needed him the most, all the stuff, the material thing didn't even matter. So it's just an interesting thing. And then fast forward 20 years, this is now 10 years ago, my dad is, 67 years old, entering in his 40th year of medical practice. And he's kind of gearing up for the next third of his life. His parents, my grandparents, had passed away a couple years prior in their mid 90s. Very sharp and healthy. And, hey, that's a good run. Like, sign me up for that if I can live till the mid 90s and gone, just without any kind of pain. And so he kind of thought I had a good run left in me, but he got diagnosed with cancer early in the year, and it was a 6-month thing. It's like, hey, I got cancer, and it's going to go fast. And so when you have an expiration date, and actually we all have an expiration date, but when you're aware of one that's closer than you might have expected, you start to prioritize things and sort of reflect on the past. And one of the last things he told me before he passed away, kind of like a deathbed confession, if you will, is he said, "Don't miss Leo's games. I missed too many of yours." And that hit me like a ton of bricks in a couple of ways. First, it was validation that he actually cared when he was missing those games. And I thought that I forgot about that. I thought that I suppressed. I hadn't even thought of that since like those high school days. And it just bubbled up in me. And then, oh my gosh. And it's almost like sweet closure to that open loop that finally got closed. And then the other thing is, holy cow, I'm repeating in my dad's footsteps. I am my dad all over again. And had you seen me, kind of go see my dad a couple years prior when he's still active and practicing, I would have been high-fiving him. Hey, Dad, I'm like you. You taught me how to be a hustler, a grinder. I got the nice houses and cars and trips to Europe just like you did, Dad. Aren't I doing awesome? I mean, family that doesn't get a lot of me, but that's how you were. So I'm good, right? This is what a man's supposed to do or supposed to be. And he'd always kind of look at me like, if I could redo things, it'd be different, because my dad eventually, lost us. He lost his family because of work. It's just not sustainable. And so kind of going back to that statement that he told me, he kind of lovingly agitated inside of me that I can't continue this way. Leo's my son. He'd just been born 10 months prior, and I'm already missing a lot of firsts. That's when the child's coming into their own. They're coming into their own for many years, but like literally starting life, and they're looking at things, observing, they're walking, they're starting to talk and communicate. And I was already missing all that stuff. And so, like I said, he agitated inside of me that I can't continue this way. Otherwise, I'm going to repeat the generational pattern that my dad passed down to me. And I know that was not a pleasant thing. And so I'm working 16, 18-hour days. I'm like, okay, well, figure this out tomorrow, then tomorrow, and tomorrow never comes. And then fast forward 3 years, I'd scaled my business to $20 million that year. I've got a money printer. Literally push a button and it spits out money. From a material perspective, life is amazing. Had you told me 10 years prior that I'd have a $20 million year, I'd be like, oh my gosh, I made it. I'm good. But I was hating life because although I was insanely profitable, the problems at a $20 million a year business are different from a $2 million a year business. Your infrastructure has to grow and graduate with you as you achieve these new levels. And I was the bottleneck for everything. It was, I had the worst org chart in human history. If you can imagine me at the top and then 40 people in the next line, and they all just report up to me. And, so I was responsible for everything. Yeah. And it led to me just burning out. And I call my mentor, who's a dear friend of mine, and I'm just like, man, I can't keep doing this anymore. And it was a 2-hour call. And to boil it down in like a sentence or two, kind of the outcome of the call was like, you got to stop doing the things you don't like to do and keep doing the things you do like to do. I'm like, oh, wow, so simple. But that phone call was essentially the foundation of the blueprint that I'm talking about now and sharing now. And it took some time because I was doing so many things, and there's this fear and anxiety that entrepreneurs and founders and just business owners go through. You're just waiting for the shoe to drop. And I don't know what shoe. There's so many threats. You're at this new level. And I had a high volume supplement company. And so, there's different threats at that level of fraud and just people trying to, like submit sales that aren't legitimate. And it caused, like, I had a $300,000 mistake. That was a tough one to have to absorb because I didn't want to lose control. And so, part of my identity was being the hero to my company. And in fact, that's just poor leadership because I'm not letting them do their thing. And so, that phone call sort of started getting the ball rolling to the ultimate transformation, which occurred 3 years later. It could have been faster, but the business owner, I'm like, I am the best one at this. And my new philosophy is if I'm 100% capacity, or not capacity, but like my talent level is 100% in a certain skill, and somebody can get to 80%, that's good enough. I can get out of the way, but give them enough time, they're going to take that to 120%. I'm gonna be like, why did I ever hang on to that task or that role? And my expertise is marketing, sales copy, conversions, traffic, media, like the fun side of making money online, not the administrative stuff. Merchant accounts, compliance, and just on and on with just admin stuff. I think I'm okay at it, but I shouldn't be doing it. And the same brain shouldn't be doing both things, at the same time. And so fast forward 3 years, 2021, scaled the business from 20 to $50 million that year, but I'm living semi-retired. I'm like checking in with the team. Hello, you guys still there? Do you need me? And of course, yes. And it's by the frameworks that we implemented. So like the Father First OS and things like that allowed to free up my time to now give that bought time that I now have back to my family to improving my health. And it just led to an amazing life. And over the last 3 or 4 years, I've had a number of friends and peers in just different circles, and they don't communicate, just different parts of my life telling me like, you need to teach this stuff. And I'm like what stuff? How to travel and all that. And they're like, yeah, how do you live this lifestyle and you're still making money and you're still growing, investing, and you're pouring into your children and you're like living the dream. You're always like somewhere new when we're talking to you. And I'm like, okay, yeah. Anyway, I had to like mull over that for a couple of years. And over the last 6 months, these frameworks and this process of buying back time sort of came to play. And it's like, if you could do that, you could do whatever you want with that time. But I have my story with my dad and how I poured into my son, and I was first blowing it with my son, blowing it with my family, nearly lost my family. I've seen where that movie goes, where you're working too hard and you lose your family, like it did with my dad. And so, I managed to turn it around. And again, it was the frameworks and.
What do you mean there? Let me stop you there. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Because you're hitting so many points and I want to follow up with you on some of them.
No,
but
all good.
I'm going to forget them.
Yeah.
Let me jump into that right here. What do you mean that you got to the point where your family, you were about to lose them? Was there like the threat of divorce and all, or you could just feel it kind of deteriorating?
It didn't quite escalate to that, but I kept missing a lot of important moments for my family. And it's just kind of like, hey, you're going to have to decide one or the other. Like, you can't have both. You know, that was sort of the sentiment, I should say, probably in different words. But and basically my whole thing was, I can't sustain this level of work and then, you know, pretend that I have this family that I'm also paying attention to. And so I had to design my life around not being the hero that my company needed, instead of, you know, being a hero and a presence to what my family needed. And that's what I'm trying to do now. Is to
How old were your kids at this time when you had this cognition?
Yeah, so I have other children, but we have a son in particular that's kind of the theme of the story, my son Leo. And at the time when everything kind of like bubbled up, I would say he's about 3.5. In 2018, he's about 3.5 years old when this started. And yeah, I'm already missing things. And my son's like trying to get my attention, like, Daddy, check this out. And I'm on the phone and I'm well intended, like, hey, give me 2 minutes and I'm all yours. But we all know you turn around, you get back on that call, 2 minutes turns into 20, turns into an hour, and then I go and say, hey, what do you want to tell me? And the moment's like lost forever.
I know what that feels like.
Off to the next thing.
Yeah. Let me go back to the beginning. When your dad said that to you, had y'all never spoken about that idea that he had missed a lot of games and missed time?
Yeah, not that specifically. He had kind of lamented over the years, just wishing being around more in general, just like, cause he'd like leave 8 a.m. He'd come back like at 11, at night. And he was a critical care physician every day, sometimes, through the weekends often. And so we would take nice trips, he'd take a month off and we'd go to Europe and that would be a great experience. But on the daily, like he was completely devoted to his work. And yeah, so he'd never mentioned the game specifically, which was a very, very specific kind of pain point for me as a child. And again, I thought I suppressed it, but when he said that, I was like, oh my goodness, I did not realize that was still somewhere deep inside of me.
And you had no idea that it was also in his mind, that he had a consideration about missing all the stuff?
Yeah, so I had an idea that he regretted how little he was around for me and my brother growing up. My brother is 18 months younger than me, so we're kind of we were kind of in the same age group there. And yeah, he missed a lot of those moments. And, I forgave him and we got along great after that. But, I never expected him to say the games thing, which is almost like a sweeter acknowledgement there. Not that he owed it to me, but it was kind of a nice thing.
Yeah, for sure. That's great. I'm glad he didn't pass with that sort of uncovered or just left undiscussed.
And when he said that to me, first, I was like, I have to accept this for myself. But then secondly, his biggest regret became my biggest mission in life. And now I want to share that with other men and that they can have their cake and eat it too if they structure their business in a proper way, step out of the way. And now you're only focusing on your zone of genius. For me, it's marketing, creative, strategic relationships that will allow me to grow my business, not the little mundane stuff. Very important, but it shouldn't be me, where my time's better spent doing somewhere else. So by reducing my work hours to near semi-retired, but never more than 30 hours a week, I'm only focusing on my zone of genius. And I'm actually multiplying my effort in what I'm best at, because when I was doing it before, I realized that only 20% of my work was actually in my quote zone of genius. But that 20% was low efficiency, low effort, low energy, because I'm burned out doing all this other nonsense that I shouldn't be doing. Again, very important, but that shouldn't fall on my plate.
I get you. Okay. You're getting into something good. I want to dig into that in a minute. Let me go back for also the company that went, you said it arrived at 20 million and then it was at 50 million. This is the supplements company that you started?
Yeah. It's a supplement company.
How many employees did you have there?
So I had 40 people working for me.
Okay.
And like I said earlier, I had the worst org chart because I was just essentially new problem comes up, hire a person, throw them on it. And maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. They ask me a question. I'm like, it's easier if I just do it.
Right.
And I do it. And it's just horrible leadership.
It's tough. Yeah.
And it just kept me trapped to the business like a ball and chain.
All right. So that got to 50 million. You had 40 people there. Your supplements and all, were they manufactured overseas, or where'd you get those made?
Yeah, they're manufactured in the United States. Yeah, we have an American fulfillment company, and they handle the manufacturing and the sourcing of all that.
And that's all vitamins, minerals, or like what all kind of supplements we talking?
Yeah, vitamins, minerals, things that you would see like at a GNC. It's not, not medications or anything like that. I would get my free market research by watching what the big pharma companies would put on prime time. And so like if they're selling or promoting a drug, it's like, ask your doctor about this, and it's about joint pain or back pain or ear ringing. I'm like, oh, that's free market research. I just got to sell a natural alternative to that. And yeah, that's how I develop products that sold very well, which helps scale the business.
Interesting. That's a good idea, man. How did you sell your products? Social media, or how'd you advertise?
Online market. I mean, it's through just buying ads. There's Google AdWords, Facebook. There's direct email buys. Like, so you can go to different websites and who have your demographic. So first you got to know who your demographic is. Where do they hang out? And then, are there newsletters or websites that they subscribe to that you can buy what's called an email drop, and they'll essentially send it for you, but you put this marketing creative together. It's got to have a compelling subject line so that they're like, hey, it piques their interest. And then it's got to have a compelling body. You're not selling the product, you're selling the click. You get them to click onto the link, and then that's where you sell your product. And you got to have a presentation that keeps them captivated and engaged. And then you got to get them to spend a certain dollar amount, because if you don't, then you can't, recycle the money into the media to scale up the business. So there's kind of an art form to all that. And I was totally not doing that. I was doing all the other stuff that sort of like drags down the creative side of things.
Gotcha. Okay. Understood. That's fascinating, man. Good for you. And how long since the start of the business to when you got to 50 mil? How many years had you had it?
Yeah, that particular business, it was 5.5 years or so.
Wow. What years are we talking?
Yeah, so 2015 is when I started that business, late in 2015, and so in 21 is when it reached its peak of that.
You peaked during COVID.
Just right after COVID.
Well, I guess the mail-in stuff was people who didn't have to travel was the high-ticket item then, huh?
Absolutely, yeah. And everybody's kind of trapped at home, so I think it just accelerated the whole adoption of online buying even more.
And
it was already heading in that way. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so, and just to give you a little backstory of me, like I started my first business in 1995 when I was 17 in high school. And so, and I started a supplement company back then. At the time, GNC was like the fastest growing franchise, and the internet was also like in a similar growth pattern. So, I set up a website online and I started selling supplements then. And it's, had different, successes and failures and ups and downs and selling different things. And then I veered back into the supplement space in 2015. So I already had a little bit of an initial run with it, and then I came back to it, almost 20 years later.
Why supplements?
Yeah, so it's interesting. Supplements, for a bunch of reasons. I mean, from a, like this is a good thing to sell perspective, it's that, people don't just buy one. So say if I was to sell hammers, like you're not going to go and buy 3 hammers, you're just buying one, and I might never sell you another hammer for as long as you live, because those things can last forever. But a bottle of supplements, it's like, they're usually designed to last a month. So, you might want to stock up and buy 3 or 4 months worth. And hey, do you got a family? Do you have kids you care about? Like in your marketing, you're like, hey, stock up for your family, and you give them discounts for buying 8 or 10 or 12. And of course there's, similar products that are in alignment. So like if you're trying to lose weight, you might also have joint pain, because excess weight can also put pain on the joints. Or you might, if you're at a certain age, you might have vision problems. And so, there's always different angles to target with supplements.
Gotcha. Fascinating. That's perfectly brilliant logic. But yeah, you need it every month. It doesn't last forever. That's
Absolutely.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. I was about to ask you something and I lost my train of thought, but that's all right.
Oh.
Did you sell in 21?
Yeah, so
you sold it?
I sold a couple years later. I sold a portion of my company, and now I'm more of a minority board, like a board member of my the company that I founded, and it's adapted and changed a little bit, and there's new management in place, and I'm still around just for like strategic marketing and advice, and I could totally go and kind of get back into supplements again in a big way, and kind of in a non-competing fashion, but just hitting a different market, similar type of thinking of, feature one main product, and there's all these other kind of sister products you could offer to the consumer. But I don't know, I've had such a long career doing that. There's this phrase like burn the boats, you make it across the island, you burn the boat, you're like, we're staying here, we're or burning the bridge or whatever, because we ain't going back. And I kind of don't want to go back to that I'm okay being a board member, but as far as like starting another one, because I just felt like I was like lacking purpose selling that way. It's a very honest and ethical way to sell, so it has nothing to do with that. And there are scammy supplement marketers, so this isn't to do with anything like that. But I've just never had anybody come and tell me, oh man, that bottle of pills you sold me changed my life. It's like, it's good, it's a good product, and I think it'll do well, but it's not transformational, it's not life-changing. And so the work that I'm focused on doing now is like, it's like bringing dad back home. And imagine, like, I'm just thinking the 12, 13-year-old version of me, how I would have lit up like a Christmas tree had I seen my dad after I scored a basket. Like, I'm doing it for that kid. I'm kind of like jumping way to the very end here. I know there's still plenty in the middle, but like at the end of the day, I want to get dad back in home so that he can make the presence that he was born to make as a father. And no judgment if you're blowing it now. It's because, that's what you learned from your dad. No judgment. But once you become aware that there's another way to do it, then I think it's upon you to figure out that way so that you can give the best to your family, and they don't get the leftovers, because my family got the leftovers of me too much. And I just, it pains me to think that there's a lot of people out there that are also going through the same thing.
All right, let me ask you something. You said you started your first company in high school and then continued thereafter. Did you go to college?
Oh, I did. So
you did.
I was going to go to, I entered college, University of the Incarnate Word in San Antonio, a little small private school, a Catholic school in Texas. And I started in pre-med. I was going to follow in my dad's footsteps. Short little story on that. So when I started my entrepreneurial journey, my dad was sort of like, son, I love you, but you're a little crazy. I paved the way for you. I've done the educational way, got a good career. If you want to like maintain this lifestyle, you got to get a good job, and you want to follow in my footsteps, great, I'll help you. And he wasn't forcing me to follow his footsteps, but his logic was, do the traditional way, go to school, get your job and your career, and that's how you make your money. And I don't fault him for that. That's what he knew. But something inside of me was like, man, I don't want to have a boss. I want to start my own business. And
that's the whole rich dad, poor dad. Thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So some Robert Kiyosaki stuff.
That's right.
And the crazy thing is, I switched from pre-med to marketing in college because in my junior year in college, I had my business had made like a doctor's income. I had a 6-figure bank balance in my checking account in like the late 90s here. And it's crazy to think about now with inflation, it's like $500,000 possibly, but I remember, because like I said earlier, like we seek the approval of our dads. And I remember one of the things my dad taught me in kind of like managing finances early on, even before starting this business, was, hey, here's a checking account. Here's how you check it. It was no iPhone where you can check your balance. You had to call in and the bank would say your bank balance is so-and-so with a direct deposit of so-and-so. And, it kind of like that's how you would check it. And so I remember getting this big 6-figure bank balance. And then I remember thinking, my dad thought I was crazy for starting this business. So here's the chance to humbly brag to my dad that I made it. So I was like, Dad, I gotta 3-way you into the bank here because something's weird. And I just wanted to see him freak out, or like in a good way, like praise, oh my gosh, son, you cracked the code. And so he hears this 142,000 something. And then he's like, son, you got to pay taxes on that. I was like, oh my gosh. He totally didn't get the point. I thought he was going to say, son, you cracked it. Yeah, so he kind of like poured cold water on the dream, and knowing him like now, like as an adult, recalling what he was trying to do, he was lovingly kind of like giving me a heads up about being wise with your finances and stuff. That's just the way he communicated. I don't think he was purposefully trying to pour water on my dreams, but it was just his way of showing like, hey son, now you got some money, you better pay the taxes. I'm like trying to figure out life, and I made 6 figures. Like, in that worth something. So where he redeemed himself, and I'll finish this part here shortly, is this is 2005, so maybe 6-7 years after that, I had my first $1 million year, and I'm in my mid-ish 20s, and I had like a collapse. So I put everything into that business. I kind of like shut down these other little income generators because this thing was making so much money that I was like losing money focusing on these little things. So I went all in on this thing, $1 million business. And then overnight, Google changed the algorithm and it just like brought the business down completely. And then I was at his house and I was kind of sad, and I was like, man, my dad doesn't care for my business stuff, so I'm not going to bring it up. But he noticed, hey, you're kind of down. What's up? Tell me. And I'm just like, I was like, whatever. He's here, so I'm going to tell him. I was like, yeah, my business sort of fell apart. I had a great year and this, that, and the other. And he already sees I got nice things. I got this Porsche 911 and stuff, and I still wasn't getting his attention. Yeah. And he said, you know what? You did it once. Just go do it again. And I remember like, he might as well have put a jetpack on me in terms of confidence. Holy cow. My dad finally like gave me the son, you've made it. Just go do it again. And then after that, he's like, so what do you want to eat? Almost like, no, Dad, did you just hear what you just told me? Like that was like a snapshot moment that I'll never forget. And so that was the redemption from the old IRS comment that he made. I think he just needed time to adapt. And then he saw me like really stick to this and really succeed with it. And that was the first time that I'd heard him sort of acknowledge, hey son, you've made it, just go do it again, and now let's go find some food or something. That was like,
that's
so interesting.
Cool, man. He may have even, and I have no idea, but envied the fact that you were doing it, because I would imagine somebody with a structured schedule like him, and then you independently going out on your own and achieving sort of the same goals. There may have been some envy or like, wow, I don't know. I'm just talking, but I would imagine.
No, yeah, totally. Yeah. It could be almost kind of like, hey, yeah, he made it that way. It wasn't my way. That's kind of cool. I don't know. Maybe he just couldn't process it.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay, my friend. So give us the advice. Somebody's busy. They're at work. All they see is the money or the dream or the whatever. But the rest of their life is suffering. Where do you start to analyze and help them get corrected?
Yeah. And the people that I talk to most of this who will take the advice probably like the best are, if you find yourself that you're cash rich, but time poor, and time poor for your family because your business is getting all your time. This is what I would do. This is what I did to start to like get rid of stuff that I shouldn't be doing. First, you got to keep track of everything you're doing for a couple of weeks. Doesn't even have to take you like in the first 3 days, you'll identify things that you shouldn't be doing, but I'd like write everything down that you're doing, even like going to the bathroom, brushing my teeth, like do it, just document everything, and you're going to see again in a matter of days things that you should not be doing as the business owner, founder, CEO, like whatever your high level role is in your business. And you got to give yourself like a dollar value per hour. For me, it was anywhere from $1,000 to $10,000 per hour is what my time is worth, like at its peak, like when I'm doing what I should be doing. And so I'd analyze all these things that I was doing, and I'm like, this is like $10 an hour work, or $10 to $50 an hour work, admin, paying bills, reconciling invoices, stuff I should not be doing. And, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Well, I have a new definition to insanity, or an addition to it, is like doing things that you've already paid somebody else to do, but you're just doing them. Like to me, that's kind of insane, but then call me the king of insanity then, because that was totally me in 2018 and prior. And so figuring out what you can do to get stuff off your plate. And then now there's 3 things you can do to get that off your plate. You can eliminate it. There's so many meetings that I was taking part of that I didn't need to be part of. I'm like, this could have been handled by just like a quick 2-minute summary email. Like I didn't have to sit through an hour to like, hear things.
Amen.
That you could just email.
God, I hate those.
Yeah, high five on that one on the meetings.
I feel your pain, yes.
Yeah, and so that's an example of one thing to eliminate. There's others, but that's just the high level one a lot of us can relate to. The other thing is automate. There's so many things we're doing that can automate. And this just a quick example for me is I was like the hub of everything, getting invoices and just notices of fixing this and that. And I was like the plate spinner, managing everything. I use Gmail or Workspaces. I'm sure people use things that are similar. All these email services can do similar things, but you got to set filters to like route those emails to certain places so that you don't have to be the one to do it. Also, there's the chance of human error when you're, like if you're like me working 16-hour days, towards the end of the day, there's a chance that you might email the wrong person an invoice to pay or something. So it also like cleans that up, makes it more efficient, gets it off your plate.
That's an AI function, or that's just a setting in Outlook or something?
that's just a setting in your inbox. There's also AI that can help manage a lot of that. And AI can help automate a lot of things, like not even scratching the surface on that. And then the third thing is delegation. And, had you told me in 2018, delegate, I was like, man, I'm already doing that. I got 40 people that work for me. Well, I wasn't delegating properly. You got to transfer ownership to the person you're delegating to and show them what successful looks like. And then you got to document it properly. And the way you do that, if there's a task that you're doing repetitively that you shouldn't be doing, what you do is do like a screen share video, like Loom is kind of the popular one. Record yourself going through the task, showing what does perfect and complete look like. You take the transcript, you put it in ChatGPT, you say, give me an SOP that's step by step. It's going to kick it out to you. You're going to put it on a Google Doc and you're going to put the Loom video there and it's done. You hand it off and you're like, I should never see this again, ever again, unless like the process changes or technology changes or a vendor changes. That can happen. But like for like a year, this should never come back into my radar unless there's like a question, and then we clear it up and we'll tweak it and then it's back to you. So that's an example of delegation. And so what I tell people is if you can just get one thing off your plate and you realize your business won't collapse, you will be hooked and addicted to do this to everything you can do. And you're going to want to essentially, buy back as much of your time as humanly possible.
Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of business owners, one thing I hear, and I went through it too, and I'm sure you did too, you don't always trust that next person to do it as well as you did it because they don't care as much. They may not know as much, whatever. You just hold on to it. I've seen attorney friends, I'm an attorney by trade, and I've seen so many of them hold on to different aspects of the case where it could be easily turned over. And it stops growth, and it also, like you're saying, just eats up all your time when it could be delegated.
Yeah, absolutely. So I tell people, just buy back a little bit and you will be hooked for life. You're gonna be like, this really works. And we at least me in my experience, like I was saying, I'm the best one at this. But I'm like, how arrogant of me to think that I was the only one that can do this task. Other people can do it. I should be focused on what I do best. That's how your business doubles. That's how your family time doubles essentially or increases.
Yeah. Right on, man. How long do you work? Like, say you take on a client, how long do you work with them normally to where they get to the point where they're like, okay, I can breathe again. I feel good. And I know it differs on their circumstance and their size of their company, but is there an average?
Yeah. So the goal is to reach transformation in 90 days.
Okay.
So what I do is like on the onboarding call, I'm going to tell my client, hey, in 6 months, we're going to take a 2-week trip somewhere. And not me literally with them. That could happen in the second year, but in the first year, in 6 months, we're going to do what's called an absence test. And hopefully the client on the other end is thinking, holy cow, how am I going to do that? I can't even step away for an hour. So good. That's why we need to do this for 2 weeks completely off the grid. If they freak out too much, I'll shorten it to 1 week. But look at the calendar, 6 months from now, where have you been wanting to go that you just haven't been able to take your family because of insert business excuse? That's where we want to go. Buy the flights, book the hotel, commit to it financially, and the clock starts right now. We need to start now to get you out from being the bottleneck so you can be the present father that you were meant to be in your business. Won't collapse. In fact, it might grow. I say might grow. It will likely grow when all your time is spent on strategic things to grow your business versus the mundane nitty gritty stuff. Again, important, but it shouldn't be you doing it. And I've got ideas for strategy as well to help them on that side. Is like, who are 50 or 100 key needle movers that just making connections to them would completely transform your business? Maybe they'd be like amazing referral partners or ideal clients. Like that's what you need to focus on, not this other little stuff.
There you go. And George, if somebody wanted your help, they're hearing this and they're like, oh my gosh, he could change my life and save everything. Like, do you have a website or how would they contact you?
Absolutely. So you can go to buybacktimeformula.com. I have a book there. It's free. Just pay shipping. It's a thick book. It's 128 pages. I put everything I know about buying back time there. So honestly, I know it's contrary to my business goals of consulting people in a very intimate basis. But honestly, like my goal is people read that and you're like, I don't need to call George. He put it all in here. There's other marketing people and God bless them. It's a valid strategy, but you buy their book and they give you a couple nuggets and then they're like, hey, you want that? You're going to pay $5,000 and join my thing. I'm not like that. You can reach me if you need more help. And I know that a lot of men who are the me of 10 years ago, I would have paid a small fortune to collapse the time that it took me to reach my transformation. And that's what I'm offering to other men who want that extra help. But honestly, start with the book. And if you need more help, I'm here to help you.
Awesome, man. Well, listen, George, it has been a pleasure. These are brilliant ideas.
Likewise, man.
And I tell you, it's a shame because a lot of people get out there and it's assumed by many that they're going to have to sacrifice family. That's sort of an assumption, like, well, I have to give that up if I want to be successful. And you've ripped that assumption apart, and it's important, but to know that I can be a good dad and I can also be a millionaire or whatever that I want to be too.
Yeah, no, if I could just leave a parting thought, it would be, because I was there in the deathbed experience with my dad, so I can tell you from experience that nobody ever says once they reach their last days and they're reflecting on their life, I'm so glad I blew that game for that client meeting. Nobody ever says that. You wouldn't even remember the name of that client when you get to those end days, but somehow, and I'm guilty of it, we used, or at least in my case, I used to, we might still do to this day, do things on autopilot that sort of reflect that kind of thinking. So I just want to make men aware that your family needs you more than you think, and once you see them light up like a Christmas tree, you're gonna know it's all worth it.
There you go. Awesome, man. Very wise words. Well, listen, George, thank you very much for your time, my friend.
Thank you, Matt. Appreciate it. It was fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Fascinating conversation. Great information. I hope everybody learned something. I'm glad you joined us for Hines on Air. If you like this episode, leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. Have you been through this? Have you applied any of these practical steps to your life? Let us know something. Also, share this, like it, and we'll see you on the next Hines on Air.